But these are the things that we need to think about. Where am I placing sentences within my narrative? And where are my words within my sentence? Now let's look at the big picture. Parallel structure, right? The whole thing. The big picture of what we're talking about, right? Each individual section, right? Each individual section, because we're going to have treatment, we're probably going to have history, we're going to have vital signs, we'll have a narrative, we'll have a section that says things along the lines of what our dispatch time was, what our arrival time was, what our at-patient time was, in-service time, at destination. Right? Each individual section has to tell a cohesive story. Now, you guys are making the assumption use electronic recording, correct?
Yes.
Do you have like a function at the end of it where you can hit view PCR or something and you can see it like on what it would look like as a PDF? Okay. And can you go back and change it after you've viewed it, but before you've submitted it?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So, when you do that, when you view PCR and you run through it, you have to make sure that the entire document tells a consistent story. So you can't make a statement, vital signs within normal limits, right? It's like what they teach us in EMT basic school when we're 18 and it sticks with us for the next 40 years. Anything that's under 200 systolic and above 40 systolic within normal limits, it seems, right? That is the truth. That is the truth. But in my skin section, when I'm documenting my findings, I put cool, pale, and clammy. Well, obviously the inference is the paramedic doesn't know what a normal vital sign is because skin is not normally cool, pale, and clammy, right? So that'll be something that will tell an inconsistent story, and the inference will be either that's a mistake, one or the other is an error, or you really don't know, as an EMS provider, what normal vital signs are. And when I speak about sentence structure, paragraph structure, and then this overall parallel structure where everything tells the same story, what I'm really getting down to is just attention to detail, thinking about the call before you write, and it could be 30 seconds, and then taking 90 seconds to 2 minutes to review it before you hit the submit button. Right? Very simple discipline things that I know are not done all the time. Any questions about sentence structure, paragraph structure, or parallel structure of the overall document for the 4 purposes? Yes?
In your experience, a parallel structure thing you just went over, will a jury or court infer that because this person is showing they don't know the basics down here, the rest of their care probably is not correct either, or shows incompetence by this person?
Mm-hmm. That will be used. So the lack of parallel structure will be used to create a question about the care that you've provided. And that's really all a jury needs sometimes. And that's all a judge needs sometimes, or expert witness. But yeah, that's exactly how an attorney, and a very good attorney, will effectively use a smaller minor inconsistency. Because how do you explain that away, right? You're testifying 2 years out or giving your deposition 2 years away from the event. Presumably you wrote this within the same 24-hour work period. And they're always going to lead off with the question, is your memory better today or was it better then? Oh, it was better then. Wrote it right afterwards. Okay. Now you're locked into that, right? You're testifying under oath, you're locked in. My memory was better then. And then they just pick and nitpick all the little inconsistencies. And what that effect that has on the witness is you get frustrated, right? You start to question yourself. You start to question the care that you provided. So that's why I think it's important to take 90 seconds, 2 minutes to think about it. Look at some specific issues with patient care reports. Specific issues. This first thing here, I call the clinical timeline. I am not a fan of the chart method, right? So complaint, history, assessment, treatment, transport that they teach EMS providers, or SOAP, subjective, objective assessment plan. Neither one of those. And the reason why is because I think both of those mnemonics imply that the paramedic knew the chief complaint, knew the history of the patient, had completed a thorough assessment of the patient, then treated the patient, then transported the patient. And that's not really what happens, right? They don't even teach us to do things that way. Right? If you remember back to your EMS days when you're doing either your medical checkoff for the National Registry or your trauma checkoff, you had this quick survey that you did of A, B, C, D, right? Real quick. So you may have applied a treatment to a patient, put a patient in a cervical collar because of the mechanism of injury and something else, before you even knew if the patient was bleeding anywhere else. So the way that I like to do it, and now it's easier with electronic reporting because you can just click in and put I did these things at specific times, but the narrative brings it together with a clinical timeline. So I saw X, I did Y, right? Patient said they had, or patient was ejected from a vehicle. I approached the patient, I took C-spine, put a C-collar on them, checked their airway, checked their breathing, found they had bleeding from the lower extremity, put a tourniquet on. I didn't listen to them breathe per se yet because I'm out in the outside, but I did that at some point. Then I rolled them over, I checked their back. I saw another injury, I dealt with it. I saw abrasion, don't need to deal with that right now. Saw an angulated forearm, don't need to deal with that right now. We got breathing issues to worry about. You see what I'm saying? So the clinical timeline says, when did I know it, when did I do it? And you can take that chronologically, compare it up to my protocol, because my protocol will tell me, what do I need to do right now, and what can wait while we're en route, right? And most protocols do have those things. These things need to be done on scene. But as soon as you can move and leave the scene, you can start the IV en route, you can do those other things. Does the clinical timeline idea make sense? So when you sit down after the call, think, what did I start with? What did I know, and when did I deal with it? The other thing that I think it does, that's illustrated by that paragraph structure, is sometimes our patients won't always tell us stuff right away. Now, I've asked a patient, do you have chest pain? You're having difficulty breathing, do you have chest pain? The patient will flat out say, no, I don't have any chest pain. 12 minutes later, I'm giving a report to the nurse, and the nurse will ask the patient, do you have chest pain? And all of a sudden, chest pain's now developed. Now, I don't know if in the 12-minute interlude it was just now a rise, or if perhaps the patient was holding back on me or what. Those things happen, right? Sometimes we have to ask a patient multiple times in different ways to get the information that we need out. So we may not always know the information right up front, but if I'm not in the medic with you, how am I going to know what it was you saw? Through your documentation, that's it. So it needs accurate reflective. Dates and times, this is a thing, I think probably because people in the fire service, their fingers are huge. So when they're hitting buttons, they always hit more than one button or the wrong button. It's kind of a joke. Maybe it's just not going over well. This is the rain, the ice, the dreary weather. That's a
I told him to be respectful.
Okay, so dates and times. Sometimes EMS reporting software has a default time on it. So if you sit down to enter a treatment or assessment, it will have a default time. And the default time is generally when you're doing it. Right? So you may have a situation where you arrived on scene, took the patient to the hospital, got to the patient at 11:56 hours, but you applied a nebulizer at 12:14 hours. Now, how can that be? Right? Well, it's because we didn't take time to go back and look and make sure all our dates and times, all our treatment and our assessment fit within the at-patient and at-hospital windows. Right? And that's just attention to detail. The other thing is dates sometimes. You get dispatched on a call at 11:50, and then you don't encounter maybe a patient until 12:01, and there's some date confusion. I know some people that have gotten very angry and upset at a computer at 1 o'clock in the morning because they couldn't get the dates figured out the right way, right? So rather than just getting done with it and doing something so all the red boxes turned green, we probably need to make sure, or not probably, but we do, that all our dates and times correspond and everything works the right way.
And Mike, can I ask a question about times?
Mm-hmm.
The question always comes up, okay, I was with this patient for 32 minutes. I did this, 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 and this, and this. I don't know exactly what time I started the IV. I don't know exactly what time I took vitals.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen it every once in a while. Someone will write, I did vitals at approximately 12:01. But the computer doesn't let you to do that. You have to actually mark a time.
Mm-hmm.
How specific when they being the court system or anyone beyond, when they're looking at times, do they understand that I may not know the exact time I gave epinephrine?
Mm-hmm. I think that the way that a good litigator would explain that on your behalf is, one, I have a good clinical timeline, so I know the order in which I did things and when I did them and what motivated me to do it. The second thing is is how did you know that was the approximate time? So some folks will print off the life pack code summary and look at all those because they're taking vital signs through that. Or they know the first thing that I do when me and this partner are on the medic is I go in, I take a blood pressure, a pulse ox, a pulse, and listen to lung sounds while my partner's talking about the chief complaint and getting their background information. So I know it was in the first 3 minutes of the time we were at patient. Or the way that I always used to do it is I knew when we hit that big bump on 35 outside of Dayton, we were 7 minutes away from Miami Valley Hospital. That's probably a little bit more of a stretch, but you just know, hey, I know at this point we're at this street, we made this turn, we're 5 minutes away from the hospital, we got to the hospital at this point. So what is it that tells you that's approximate time? I don't know if you're always going to have direct detailed time because I know my watch is probably not what the back of the medic clock or the life pack clock says, and definitely not what the computer clock says. I don't know if your computers change automatically or if you actually have to go in there and reprogram the life pack when the time change or the computer. But sometimes you do need to be conscious of how I know that's the approximate time. And there's nothing, if it was 11:31 or 11:32, does that really make a big difference if I know that I knew the contraindication prior to, and that's why I didn't do the treatment this way, I did it that way. So you just got to be able to explain those things consciously to folks. And hopefully you have a good strapping, assistant city attorney to do that on your behalf.
That was another joke, right?
Yeah, it was. Medical terminology and abbreviations. Now, if you don't know what the word means, the medical word, don't use a big word. I thought I was a pretty smart dude. Going to college, working on the fire engine, I used a lot of big words. I realized I had no idea what those big words meant. Same thing with abbreviations. The fire service has developed its own abbreviations. One of the things we forgot about is that we're actually part of the big picture healthcare system here in the United States. So the abbreviations that we use when we document things should be the same abbreviations that are standard in the hospital, which means, and I know everybody loves to start out every narrative with UA, right, which means what in a hospital? Your analysis, not upon arrival. So I think it's important that we standardize our abbreviations and we only use those that are accepted. And I think, I don't know if it's JCO or one of those other hospital things has actually, maybe it's ICD-10 booklet about insurance billing that specifies exactly what abbreviations are acceptable for use in the healthcare environment. Check boxes and lists. Sometimes we're clicking things real quick. And I'll tell you a story when I worked as a paramedic at Ohio State. I was just checking through a bunch of patient stuff and I accidentally put down that the pregnancy test on a patient was positive. I heard a scream down the hallway. A nurse and a physician came running towards me. Michael, are you 100% sure that this patient is pregnant? Because we need to know. And she screamed and said, there is no possible way. Right? I was pulling down check boxes and lists, and I was careless in how I was doing things. But I didn't go back and check it before I hit the submit button, and that's my fault. The patient wasn't pregnant. The test wasn't wrong. The error was in my documentation, which a physician and other nurses were relying on to do their treatments. And a patient got a very rough scare out of it that she thought she was pregnant, or doctors told her. Sarcasm I'll talk about in a bit. Do you guys have an auto narrative function?
We don't use it.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah, don't use it. And I think maybe it's coming from Southwest Ohio and Clark County, but using an auto narrative function is like doing the same thing twice, right? It just doesn't make sense down there because I've already put all the stuff in. So I want to use my narrative to complement my other list, right? To complete the picture, to tell what I'm actually doing, to fill in those gaps. There is no checkbox for icy wooden stairs on a 3-story walk-up. Do you guys ever have to go to a 3-story walk-up with those? You know, when those suckers get icy, that is tough. So why was your on-scene time 37 minutes in a patient that was critical? Well, we had to get this patient down 3 flights of stairs in the middle of an ice storm where ice had covered wooden steps and there was none of those grips or salts or anything put down, and the patient couldn't walk. At least any PCR I've seen, software I've seen, doesn't have that box. So I need to use my narrative to fill in those gaps, to explain things. Multiple patients, do you guys use life packs or life packs? Does it automatically hook up into your PCR? So if I'm taking a blood pressure, I can Bluetooth it in?
We can,
We
but,
can?
yeah.
Okay. So imagine, you guys ever go to 270 up there? Let's say you show up and there's 3 patients, right? You take one patient in the back, you start to do some vital signs, one of those where they're just shook up, they need to calm down. No trauma, no intrusion in the vehicle, probably don't need to be transported. All of a sudden, another individual does have a situation where they need to get in the back of the medic real quick. You've already taken a set of vital signs using the life pack. Now you throw somebody else in the back of your medic real quick. You take another set of vital signs. Now we have 2 patients' information that you may Bluetooth over to the patient care report. Now, in the heat of the moment, moving things real quick, maybe it's a busy day, maybe you need to get back in service. Sometimes we don't always think, well, how many patients' information from this life pack is coming on the patient care report? So I need to think about those things consciously. Same thing with that at patient time. Was I at this patient at that time, or was it 5 minutes or 7 minutes later because I had been at 2 different patients? Right? That'll make a big difference. Pertinent negatives and adjectives, we'll talk. The big thing, that's in red, it's italicized, and it's bolded, and it's underlined. That means it's important. If you walk away with anything else from today, before you hit the submit button, read your report. Just read your report and see if it makes sense. I guarantee you'll find mistakes. I find mistakes in everything that I document. Everything. Whoop. I actually went to send an email earlier today, and usually what I do is I take a minute and a deep breath, because sometimes we fire off emails we unintentionally don't mean to send. And I find mistakes in everything that I write, right? Maybe I didn't express that idea the right way. All of a sudden I have a 3-line rambling sentence that makes it look like I'm not qualified to be an attorney. You probably want to fix that before they send me my next paycheck. So just before you hit the submit button, before you hit the send button, before you fax it to the hospital, whatever it is you guys do to get it to the hospital, make sure that you've read it, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, make sure the whole thing just makes sense and it's representative of the work that you do as an EMS provider. So here's sarcasm. Biggest problem about sarcasm, as we've experienced the first 35 minutes of this, is sometimes it can be misconstrued, right? Either as a joke or not as a joke. So, patient found in parking lot after fight with laceration to the head, minimal bleeding, patient intoxicated, patient angry with crews.